We've all heard stories about inheritances, right? But this one's a little different. It's a timeless story, really, about the gap between getting a promise and actually taking possession. It's about land, it's about legacy, and what happens when you finally get what you've been waiting for, and it is not what you expected at all. So just imagine this for a second. You've been waiting, your family has been waiting for generations for this incredible inheritance. And then the day finally comes. You get it, but it's a mess. It's filled with dangerous complications. Well, that's the exact situation Joseph's descendants found themselves in, and it forced them to ask a really tough question. What do you do when the promise you were given and the reality you're facing just don't line up? All right, so let's set this scene. Our story kicks off with a huge moment, a promise finally coming true. After all those years of wandering in the desert, the tribes of Israel are finally carving up the promised land. And it is Joseph's descendants' turn. They're about to get their share. And here it is. This is the foundational moment. The two tribes that came from Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim, are officially granted their territory. On paper, everything is settled. The deed is signed, so to speak. They have their inheritance. Now, you'd think this would be the happy ending, right? Nope. This was just the beginning of their struggle. Now, this wasn't some vague, hey, you get some land over there kind of deal. Oh no, there was a detailed plan. We're talking maps, specific borders, the whole 9 yards, dividing this massive inheritance between the two brother tribes. So here's how it was split. Ephraim got the southern portion, a stretch of land running from the Jordan River, through the hills, and all the way west to the Mediterranean Sea. Manasseh's territory was just north of that, also reaching the sea and bumping up against some other tribes. I mean, this was a huge, valuable piece of real estate right in the heart of the new nation. It looked like a fantastic inheritance. And this is where the ink on the map meets the mud on the ground. See, having a plan for the land and actually possessing it are two very, very different things. And almost right away, two major complications popped up, one from within the family and one from the outside. So the first problem starts with a man named Zelophehad. Now, you gotta understand, the law back then was very clear. Land inheritance passed from father to son. That's how you kept property within the clan. But Zelophehad had a unique family situation. No sons, only daughters. And in that culture, this created a major legal and social crisis. But this is where we see the incredible courage of these 5 women. Mala, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tirzah. They weren't about to just accept their fate. No way. They went directly to the leadership to plead their case. And get this, they didn't just ask for a favor. They came prepared with a legal argument. They reminded Joshua of a divine command given way back to Moses. And you know what? It worked. Joshua granted them their land, which set a groundbreaking new standard for women's property rights. It was a huge internal victory and a powerful lesson in how challenging the status quo can create a legacy. So just as they solve one problem, a much bigger one looms. Their inheritance wasn't exactly empty. The land was already occupied by the Canaanites, and, well, the Canaanites had absolutely no intention of leaving. This was setting the stage for a major conflict. So you have this standoff. On one side, the Israelites. They have the divine deed to the land, and they're growing in number and strength. But on the other side, the Canaanites are dug in, determined to stay, and, this is the kicker, they have a massive technological advantage. Chariots fitted with iron. In the ancient world, this was basically like bringing a tank to a sword fight, a total game changer. The result? A stalemate. The tribe of Ephraim couldn't take the city of Gezer. Manasseh failed to occupy key towns like Beth-shan, so they settled for this weird compromise. They subjected the Canaanites to forced labor, but they didn't actually drive them out. The inheritance was theirs in name, but not fully in reality. As you can imagine, this frustrating situation, not enough cleared land and powerful enemies they can't defeat, it eventually just boils over. The people of Joseph decide they have a resource problem, and they take their complaint directly to their leader, Joshua. And this is their opening line. Notice how they frame it. They don't say, hey, we need help defeating the Canaanites. They say, you didn't give us enough land. In their minds, their struggle is a failure of the initial allocation. And here's the core of their argument. They say, we are a numerous people and the Lord has blessed us abundantly. Isn't that something?
What should have been their greatest strength, their large population, is now being presented as their biggest problem. They feel crowded, constrained, and totally shortchanged. Joshua's first response is brutally practical. He essentially says, okay, if your problem is that you're a big, powerful tribe and you feel cramped, then act like a big, powerful tribe. There's a whole forest in the hill country. Go clear it and make more room for yourselves. He puts the responsibility right back on them. But they immediately push back. And this is where the real issue comes out. It's not about the forest. It's about fear. They say the hill country isn't enough, and they can't go into the plains because that's where the Canaanites are with their iron chariots. They feel trapped, stuck between a forest they don't want to clear and an enemy they're afraid to fight. This is the turning point of the entire story. Joshua hears their fear, but he does not accept their excuse. Instead, he completely reframes their problem, turning what they see as a weakness into their greatest weapon. What a response! He takes their complaint, "We are numerous," and turns it into a declaration. You are numerous and very powerful. He tells them the forest isn't a consolation prize. It's a second inheritance waiting to be claimed. He's not giving them more land. He's showing them the potential they already possess. And then he addresses their fear head-on. He acknowledges the iron chariots and the strength of the Canaanites. He doesn't dismiss the threat, but then he delivers the final empowering challenge. You can drive them out. He shifts the entire narrative from one of scarcity and fear to one of power and possibility. And that leaves us with this final thought. Joshua's challenge to the people of Joseph echoes through time. It forces us to ask whether our true inheritance is just the set of circumstances we're handed, or if it's the potential that lies within those circumstances, just waiting for us to have the courage to clear the forest and face the challenges head on.